think that Whitaker is a terrific fighter. They sing his praises. Wonderful, wonderful, and yet again, wonderful.
It was time for Pernell Whitaker to fight where Pernell Whitaker wanted to fight. I had nothing to prove.
Pernell Whitaker was one of the greatest defensive boxers who ever lived. We all know that, but on July 14, 2019, the man who dodged thousands of punches couldn't dodge a car on a dark Virginia street. And what happened that night might not be what you think. Because while the official report called it an accident, the circumstances surrounding Whitaker's death raised troubling questions. During his life, Whitaker made enemies, owed debts, and knew secrets. But the truth about what happened at that intersection of Northampton Boulevard and Baker Road has never been fully told. The driver who struck him remains unnamed. The investigation closed remarkably fast, and the very same intersection would claim another life just 2 years later. Pernell Whitaker, Olympic gold medalist, 4-division world champion, and this is the untold story of his final night. Whitaker was a man who redefined what it meant to be untouchable in the ring. Born in Norfolk, Virginia on January 2, 1964, he grew up in the Youngs Park housing community, where boxing wasn't just a sport, it was a way out. And young Pernell took that way out with a dedication that would become legendary. His amateur record speaks for itself: 201 wins, just 14 losses. Think about that for a moment. That's a 93.5% win rate against the best amateur fighters in the world. He didn't just compete, he dominated at every level, winning the 1982 World Championships, the 1983 Pan American Games, and then came the moment that would launch him into boxing immortality, the 1984 Los Angeles Olympics. At those games, Whitaker didn't just win gold. He demolished his opponents with a style that left even seasoned boxing observers shaking their heads in disbelief. His final against Luis Ortiz was so one-sided that the referee had to give Ortiz 2 standing 8 counts just to keep the fight going. Whitaker was that good. But it wasn't power that made Whitaker special. It was his defensive genius that turned him into a phantom in the ring. They called him Sweet Pea because he was so slick, so smooth, that opponents would swing at air where his head had been a split second before. His shoulder roll was poetry. His footwork was ballet. His head movement was pure art. After turning professional in 1984, Whitaker collected world titles like other men collect baseball cards. Lightweight champion by 1989, IBF light welterweight champion by 1992, WBC welterweight champion by 1993, a brief reign as WBA light middleweight champion in 1995. 4 different weight divisions conquered, and in each one, he made the best fighters in the world look like they were fighting a ghost. But here's where the story takes a darker turn, because for all his brilliance in the ring, Whitaker's life outside the ropes was spiraling into chaos. The man who could slip any punch couldn't slip the demons that haunted him. The money came fast and left even faster. Whitaker earned millions during his career. His fight against Oscar de la Hoya alone netted him $6 million. But by the 2000s, the fortune was gone. Cocaine had entered his life sometime in the 1990s, and what started as recreational use became a full-blown addiction that would lead to multiple arrests. In 2002, he was convicted of cocaine possession. In 2003, another drug arrest. The defensive master who protected himself so perfectly in the ring couldn't defend against his own worst impulses. His marriage to Rovanda Anthony crumbled spectacularly. The divorce proceedings revealed a man in financial freefall. Despite those multi-million-dollar purses, Whitaker was broke. The IRS came calling, placing liens on his properties. His Virginia Beach home, purchased during his glory days, was lost. The man who once owned multiple properties and luxury cars was reduced to living in a modest apartment. And then there were the whispers about gambling debts. Whitaker was known to frequent casinos, and not just for appearances. Sources close to the former champion suggested he owed significant sums to people who didn't accept IOUs, the kind of people who had their own ways of collecting debts. By 2014, things had gotten so bad that Whitaker had to auction off his Olympic gold medal. Think about that. The crown jewel of his amateur career, the symbol of his rise from the Norfolk projects to international glory, sold to pay bills. It fetched $55,000, a fraction of what he'd earned for a single fight in his prime. By the summer of 2019, Pernell Whitaker was 55 years old and trying to piece his life back together. He'd been sober for several years, working as a trainer at a boxing gym in Virginia Beach. Those who saw him in his final days described the man who seemed at peace with his reduced circumstances, but there were signs that the past hadn't completely released its grip. On July 13, 2019, just 24 hours before his death, Whitaker was photographed with Floyd Mayweather at an autograph show in Virginia. In the photo, he's smiling, looking healthy, shaking hands with the younger champion. Mayweather would later post this image as a tribute, not knowing it would be one of the last photos taken of Whitaker alive. That same weekend, Whitaker had been making calls to old friends and family members. His son, Dontavius, later mentioned that his father seemed in good spirits but had been talking about making things right with people. He was scheduled to be honored at the Manny Pacquiao-Keith Thurman fight in Las Vegas that coming Saturday. Was this just a man in recovery following the 12 steps, or was there something more urgent driving these conversations? On the evening of July 14, Whitaker left his residence sometime after 9 p.m. Where he was going remains unclear. The intersection where he died, Northampton Boulevard and Baker Road, wasn't particularly close to his home. It wasn't on the way to the gym where he trained. It wasn't near any restaurants or businesses that would have been open at that hour on a Sunday night. What we do know is this. At approximately 10:04 p.m., emergency services received a call about a pedestrian struck at the intersection. When they arrived, they found Pernell Whitaker's body in the westbound lanes of Northampton Boulevard. The scene was chaotic but controlled. The driver of the vehicle, whose identity has never been publicly released, remained at the scene and was reportedly cooperating with police. Witnesses described seeing a figure in dark clothing attempting to cross the 8-lane boulevard. There was no crosswalk at that intersection. The nearest safe crossing points were over a mile away in either direction, from Diamond Springs Road to Wesleyan Drive. The Virginia Beach Police Department's fatal accident crash team investigation moved with unusual speed. Within hours, they had determined that this was an accident. The driver showed no signs of impairment. There was no evidence of excessive speed. Case closed, or so it seemed. But let's examine what the official report actually said. According to L.M. Botter, Virginia Beach Police spokesman, when officers arrived on scene, they located an adult male victim who had been hit by a vehicle. The victim succumbed to his injuries on the scene. The driver of the vehicle remained on scene with police. The autopsy confirmed death by multiple blunt force trauma. The toxicology report showed no drugs or alcohol in Whitaker's system. This was a sober man making a deliberate choice to cross at that specific location at that specific time. Now, consider this. The driver's identity remains protected to this day. While it's not unusual to withhold names in non-criminal traffic incidents, the complete absence of any information raises questions. Local journalists who tried to dig deeper hit wall after wall. The intersection itself tells its own troubling story. Northampton Boulevard at Baker Road was known to locals as a death trap. 8 lanes of traffic moving at 45 miles per hour. Minimal street lighting. No pedestrian infrastructure despite being surrounded by businesses and residential areas. But here's what the initial reports didn't mention. There were security cameras at multiple businesses along that stretch. Yet no footage was ever released. The police stated the cameras either weren't working or didn't capture the incident. Let's talk about the money trail. At the time of his death, Whitaker's financial situation was complicated. Court records show he still owed back taxes. There were outstanding judgments from the divorce, but there were also new debts that hadn't made it to court yet. Multiple sources within Virginia's gambling community have suggested Whitaker had accumulated significant debts in the months before his death. Then there's the life insurance question, reportedly worth $500,000. The beneficiaries? That information remains sealed. In the weeks before his death, Whitaker had been trying to sell his story rights, shopping around a tell-all book about his career, promising to reveal secrets about the dark underbelly of boxing. He claimed to have information that could destroy careers. Whitaker's cocaine years had put him in contact with dangerous people. A former associate claimed Whitaker had kept money he was supposed to pass along. In the months before his death, Whitaker had been seen with the ex-girlfriend of Marcus Big Smoke Thompson, a drug dealer released from prison just 2 months earlier. The intersection wasn't random. In the 5 years before Whitaker's death, 3 pedestrians had been killed there. The city had been petitioned repeatedly for safety improvements, every request denied. Then, in September 2021, Aubrey Diane Parker, 56, was killed at the same intersection in nearly identical circumstances. Only after this second high-profile death did the city finally install crosswalks and signals. What we know for certain, Pernell Whitaker died at one of Virginia Beach's most dangerous intersections when he had enemies, owed dangerous people money, and was trying to sell potentially damaging information. The investigation was perfunctory, the driver remains unknown, and key evidence was never collected. What do you think? Was Pernell Whitaker's death really just a tragic accident, or is there more to this story that's been buried? Why not leave us a comment below with your theory?